So first, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the many lands that we've gathered from today. I'm coming from the Dharawal country on the south coast where the mountains meet the sea. I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and I'd like to also extend that respect to any Aboriginal and or Torres Strait Islander peoples that are participating in today's event. Okay, so you've heard the little bit about me. I suppose the one of the things that I'm extremely passionate about is the access and inclusion of people who are blind or vision impaired in education, training and employment. So it's something that I have really been very vocal with throughout my career, and certainly with the majority of my career being with Tafe New South Wales. And it certainly has led me to being successful in now managing the Disability Inclusion Action Plan implementation for Tafe New South Wales. And I've never been in more virtual meetings in my entire life as I have been in the last 6 months, I'd have to say, as well with this role. So Tafe New South Wales has got a very long history of supporting students with disability, and that has now been, I suppose, is being crystallised with the development of Tafe New South Wales' first Disability Inclusion Action Plan. And Tafe has made a commitment with the implementation of this plan that they are striving to be the vet provider of choice by people with disability. So I suppose historically I think that we've always worked very well in supporting our students, but with the strategies that we're working on now, there's a real commitment to pulling everything together in looking at making sure all of our learning materials are accessible, really working hard to ensure that our learning environments are fully accessible. And by the end of next year, we will have achieved a number of really critical goals around digital and physical accessibility, looking at the way all of our products have been developed within a universal design framework, and ensuring that reasonable adjustment is really embedded throughout the whole of the student journey with Tafe New South Wales. So the key people that Tafe has, or Tafe New South Wales has, in relation to supporting students who are blind or vision impaired or who have any type of disability, are our Tafe teacher consultants. So we have about 88 teacher consultants that are spread throughout the whole of Tafe New South Wales. And some of those teacher consultants are vision specialists. We have others that specialise in different aspects of disability, and we also have teacher consultants that are generalist roles as well. And the really important thing to note is that we're very good at collaborating. And so, for example, if a generalist teacher consultant, if they had a student enroll in sort of their region who was blind and a screen reader user, then that teacher consultant would reach out to one of the vision specialists to get advice or support or access to resources, or it might even be a quick JAWS question. You know, so it's really important to feel confident that no matter where you enrol within Tafe New South Wales, that you will get the support that you require, even though the person on the ground is a teacher consultant. Even if they're not a vision specialist, it doesn't mean that you are going to miss out or have any less of an experience as someone who has access to a teacher consultant that happens to be a vision specialist. Okay, so one of the most important pieces of advice that I can give you is to do not wait until you enroll to reach out to a teacher consultant, because by then you are going to be behind the eighth ball in having any support that you need organised, because as I'm sure many of you know, that can take time. You know, even if it's a delay of a week, that's already going to put you a week behind. I know from my own experiences with senior high school and a lot of post-secondary education, both within Tafe and university, that doesn't matter how fast I have jaws gibbering in my ear, it doesn't matter how fast I can type, and believe me, I can type very, very fast. I am still going to take more time to get through my learning than someone that isn't dealing with using those alternative means of accessing their learning. That is, for most people who are blind or vision impaired, that's our reality. That's the world we live in. And so it's time management. And I know Natalie was talking about time management. Making sure that you allow enough time to have things put in place before your classes start is critical. So, you know, a good few weeks before you're thinking of enrolling, or even if you're not sure what you might like to enroll in, contact your local campus, or you can go onto the Tafe website, which is tafensw.edu.au. You can, there's a chat space in there. You can actually request to speak to a teacher consultant, you know, in your particular area where you live, and speak to somebody. So the types of things that teacher consultants support students with is, you know, it can be from working out what type of course you would like to do, thinking about, well, what are your interests? Do you have a particular work goal that you want to pursue? We also can assist students in working out what point, at what level do you actually enroll in? So for example, if you want to do a certificate 4, but you struggle with literacy, or you're only just learning to use a computer with assistive technology, a certificate 4 is going to be extremely challenging. And so we might recommend that you start at a certificate 2 and build your way up, so that you actually develop all of those other skills that you need to have a successful crack at a certificate 4. We also can organise vocational support for you, which we call learner support. And so that could be literacy support. It could be a vocational teacher. So for example, if you were studying in community services, say you wanted to be a youth worker, and you start off doing a certificate 3 in community services, and there's a lot of reading in community services and assignments. And if you feel like you're falling behind, you're struggling to keep up, or because you might be learning virtually with online learning and a virtual classroom, that you may be missing some concepts of the learning, we can organise for you to have lessons outside of the class time with a teacher from that teaching section to help you to catch up. We also have other staff members that we call disability assistants, which are like the odd teachers' aides and the SLSOs that you have in the school sector. Now, the disability assistants are like the practical support in the classroom. So if you're doing, I've had a blind student a couple of years ago do commercial cookery. And so she had a disability assistant with her for every practical class in the kitchen. And part of that was to make sure that she was safe, and to assist with grabbing ingredients, for example, because it was it's a very busy classroom environment. You've got to be able to keep up. to assist with demonstrations of what the teacher's actually demonstrating to the students and what they're going to cook, all of those types of things. So, so you can have, you know, practical support in a practical environment. A disability assistant also might act as a note taker. So for students who, for a whole range of reasons, have difficulty taking their own notes, we can organise note takers for you. And the disability assistance, that space also covers Auslan interpreters for students who work with interpreters to communicate. The other types of things that teacher consultants can help organise is supporting you use your assistive technology. Our role is not to teach you how to use it. You need to come to Tafe with a working knowledge of the technology that you need to use. We can support you to develop those skills within the specific space that you're learning in. So for example, Tafe New South Wales is a Microsoft organisation. So we use Microsoft Teams for all of our virtual learning. We use all of the products within Office 365. Students do get a free license to Office 365 when you're studying at Tafe. So it's really important to understand that when you come to Tafe, first, it is vocational education and training. So it's gearing you up to get a job. That's the point of vocational education and training. And so part of that, and something I actually feel really strongly about, is helping you develop all of the other skills that will support you be successful in your course, but also support you then being successful in employment. And developing your digital literacy is critical. So even our students that, our tradie students, which traditionally very hands-on, a lot of people go into sort of the practical courses and trades to not have to use computers. They're using computers, you know, they're using computers to test equipment, they're using computers to book appointments, to certainly to do their assignments and access their learning. But you know, it would be very difficult, I think, these days to find a job where at some point you're not needing to have some digital literacy. So we do have JAWS and ZoomText licenses available, absolutely. We do have some laptops that students can borrow where they don't have devices, particularly, for example, at the moment where you might have a laptop at home, but there might be 3 other people that also need to use that laptop at home, particularly with COVID. People are working from home and having to study from home. We do have facilities to be able to loan laptops to students. My recommendation to you though, and we are seeing this becoming a trend more and more each year, is that people are using their own devices because they've already got them set up to work with their individual preferences. Technology now is so portable, and so we are finding that you know, people are using their own devices. Now that means that we also need to make sure that if someone's using a Mac with VoiceOver, and so they've got Microsoft Office, you know, on their Mac, but the way you interact with that is going to be different to the way someone using JAWS is interacting with Microsoft on a Windows computer. We have a lot of students now that are studying direct from tablets, whether they're Android or Apple. So, and certainly one of the actual projects that we're working on at the moment is developing a resource space for all of our teachers and teacher consultants, and also our people on our, we've got a student help desk, an IT help desk, so that we're gathering resources and creating discussion spaces so that people can jump on and say, hey, I've got a student on the help desk that is a ZoomText user and they're having trouble you know, accessing the library catalogue. you know, are there any shortcut keys that might be useful? You know, so that then that person on the help desk can get back to that student and say, okay, well, why don't you try this and this and this? So we're really working on supporting people using assistive technology, I suppose, enhance their learning and have access to their learning, you know, no matter what sort of device that they're using. So I'd like to, I'm just jumping through my notes here.
Would you like to go to Q&A? We've got a few questions that are coming.
Yeah. Have you? Janet did send me through one question. It was actually talking about hard copy Braille. We outsource Braille. Braille. We don't do any in-house Braille production. I actually think I've got the only Braille embosser in the whole of the organisation, and that's I use that for work, and so fortunately for any Braille students that would come through me, I could like knock off a bit of Braille for them. So the commercial cookery student, for example, was a Braille user. She used technology as well, but she liked her recipes printed out in hard copy Braille, and I was actually able to do that. Braille production, like anywhere, takes time, and so again, it's really critical if you're going to need hard copy Braille. That's another reason to really get in early to speak to the teacher consultant, so that there's enough time to request the Braille that you need. The reality is that I think hard copy Braille is being used less and less for the majority of information. And I know Natalie talked about how are you going, you know, what are the different ways you can access information? Because our information primarily is available in a digital environment, what I would recommend if you're a Braille user is to really consider what Braille devices, digital Braille devices that you might use. So for example, I've got a Braille Note Touch Plus, and so that's other than agendas and particular notes that I might use in hard copy Braille, particularly when I'm teaching. I use more hard copy Braille. I do use the Braille Note Touch Plus. So, and the other question was around courses. And Natalie mentioned this as well, that the world's your oyster. You know, I'm very, very much a believer that, for example, it'd be really challenging for someone that's totally blind to work as a early childhood educator. Having to supervise a bunch of little kids, there are risks associated with that, and there are safety issues. My response to a student that would come to me to say, you know, I want to work in childcare, it's about what is it about childcare that you're passionate about. And you know, I've had students I call it peeling back the onion, where they might decide to look at pursuing things like community services with a focus on children, or they might look at doing music therapy with children. You know, like it's peeling back the onion and looking at where your interests are and how can we create, you know, support you in creating a pathway to that.